And we are live in my new
office.
I can't. Episode 168, my first in my lying bed, lying office setup, lying desk setup. And we are welcoming Andy Butland in the new role today. Hi, Andy. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Good.
Yeah, we have a lot of things to discuss from today's announcements, especially from around HQ news. And Andy, you've joined HQ recently. How's your first weeks of work?
3 weeks. We were just discussing.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. 3 weeks in, yeah, as you say, and it's been fairly busy. I think this week in particular looks particularly busy in terms of all the announcements. It wasn't all done in this week, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a funny one really because I've moved to Umbraco, but obviously know Umbraco from the outside quite well, having been a community member and done PRs and that sort of thing. So I know the code base, I know quite a few people. But yeah, there's definitely lots to learn on the inside. I'm discovering just how important dependencies and compatibility are when you're working on a product. As an agency dev, it's kind of easy really because you just have one version of production, but that's absolutely not the case here.
Yeah, it's true. If you're the only consumer of your software, you break some stuff, you fix the stuff, and you mitigate that. But I guess, yeah, in your role, you break it, and the over 1 million installs of forms or whatever, or downloads of forms historically are like
exactly. And all the combinations, this CMS version with this deploy version. So yeah, I'm learning a lot.
Nice.
Yes, good so far.
So we're going to talk about your role a bit, but you're responsible for Umbraco Forms and Umbraco Deploy. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So this is a new role in a sense, in that it's somebody brought in to have a focus on the commercial packages of Umbraco, which at the moment, as you say, is Forms and now Deploy on premises.
And so the D team, of course, I think the structure has changed in the D team quite a lot, maybe since Philip came on board. I know that last year when we had Morten and Rasmus on, they talked a bit about how the cloud team had changed and they now have a platform team where previously they were the hardcore team. So
that's right, yeah.
So there's a cloud platform team, there's a cloud feature team, which used to look after Forms and Deploy, and then a core team, I think you said.
That's right, yeah. So there's a core team, and then within the core team, we now have this sort of CMS and we have the commercial packages. So yeah, there's a bit of structure there, but there's obviously a lot of overlap as well. I mean, Deploy, as well as being a separate product now, is the tool that is a big part of cloud. So there's a lot of overlap between the cloud platform team and obviously on Deploy. And in terms of the packages, I mean, one of the things I suppose we'll talk about, mate, is migrating to .NET Core, and clearly one of the big focuses of the CMS team has been building a .NET Core version. So, already Bianca and myself are working very closely on that. So, yes, there's a bit of structure because there's also quite a few developers now, but there's a lot of overlap and discussion as you'd expect to.
And of course, you said you know the Umbraco community. You were the head of development at Zone for many years.
Yeah,
you know the Umbraco community. You've been to many retreats. You've done many awesome packages. You're an MVP. It seems Umbraco is just lapping up MVPs right now, aren't they? Just got
MVPs plus community team members. That's something.
Yeah.
There is an obvious path of developer being just acquired from the community teams, and
it's
it seems
funny
like it's.
Because we're actively trying to hire people as well, and it's I was saying to Arnold yesterday, it's a bit of a contest of who's going to get the amazing Umbraco devs from the community. Is it going to be Umbraco themselves, or is it going to be agencies?
But notice that thanks to the remote opportunities right now, everyone is fighting for the same people, and that's the exact benefit which I've mentioned for years, that you can hire anyone just because of the skills or any other abilities, not just because they are nearby or from your location, right? So that's like it's an amazing opportunity for people like you, Andy, to work with Umbraco, to be involved, and for others as well to just seek and look for better jobs or maybe other teams or companies to work with.
Exactly.
You're still based in Italy, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I moved to Italy a while ago, and Zone were very good at the time to let me do that. And I worked for about 8 years for them remotely, so I'm kind of fairly used to that setup. But if I was going to move anywhere else, I wanted to maintain that. So it was only really when Umbraco did decide to recruit more widely that I saw and obviously thought to apply. yeah, I mean, from their perspective, as you're saying, Marcin, they can pick from, you know, a wider group of people, and also a lot of people that know Umbraco. Because, you know, you start a new job and there's always loads of stuff to learn, but at least if you're coming in knowing something about it and some of the people, that it makes things a bit easier. So yeah, I certainly found that.
So we can talk then from just checking from our list of things to being announced this week. You've been involved in the .NET Core version, so we can start maybe from there, because there's a new alpha release of Umbraco, which is Alpha 4 release, yeah, it has a lot of improvements since the last versions. Still some things which are not addressed or not fully covered yet, but it's really getting mature, and we've seen a lot of projects, a lot of information being shared, and people being tackling it and trying it in their projects. And it seems like it's getting there. Really, it's getting there.
There was certainly a lot of buzz this week of people testing it out on Twitter, and I know actually a few people hit issues with Models Builder. So there's a nightly build that fixes Models Builder for most of the issues that people are seeing. But yeah, it looks like people are actually starting to play with it and getting involved and providing feedback. This release, as far as I understand, was marked as, if you're a package dev, in most cases, you can start developing against this. We're not going to change too much. I think, let me just check my notes. The few things that they said will change are the membership, because it's not quite complete yet. The IFileSystem implementations, if you're doing anything with file system providers, they're probably going to break at some point before the main beta release. And what else did I notice? Oh yeah, Examine. So
migrations to .NET Standard, right?
Yeah, this one's kind of breezed over a bit. I don't know, Andy, if you know any more. And I know Bjarke's watching. Hey, Bjarke, maybe you can answer in the chat. So Examine being migrated to Net Standard, is that going to coincide with a bump of the Lucene.NET version as well?
Yeah, you might have to wait for Bjarke to answer on that one, I'm afraid. I don't know the details of that specific thing.
As far as I knew, or as far as I've heard, the idea was that Examine v2, let's say, which will be the one used in the .NET Core version of Umbraco, will be migrated to Lucene 4.8, I think, the Lucene.NET 4.8. Shannon's been working hard on that. Bjarke said yes, so let's assume that's true. But I guess that means if anyone's doing something heavy with Examine in a package as well, maybe it's better to wait. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair of the things that are mentioned there. I mean, as you probably discussed before, the intention was this was to be the beta, and it's not being called a beta in the sense that it's not complete yet, so we don't want to consciously call it a beta. But in the things that aren't called out, they're intended to be as complete as a beta would be. So although it's an alpha, we aren't expecting to have to change all the other things that aren't mentioned as being specifically called out, still to do.
Indeed.
So that's why, yes, for package development, we kind of see this is the one where this can start, unless you happen to have a heavy dependency on some of the things you just talked about.
I know that one of the big changes that was announced as part of this Alpha 4, which makes me really, really happy to see, is a new way of handling events. So previously in Umbraco, for many, many years, events have been static events on the concrete implementations of services and whatever. Whereas now it's being moved over to a has it been described an event aggregator?
Yep.
So this, if anyone's used Vendor or is familiar with Mediator, but anyone in the Umbraco world that's used Vendor has this kind of events handler setup, so you can just register as many handlers as you want for events, which makes so much sense. I think means that we can, nicely decouple our events from all of the concrete implementations of services. And I guess that's also going to impact packages in some way, because packages now, if they want to consume an event, will have to use one of those handlers rather than composer model that we had in V8 before. I believe even components are gone, or composers are gone, sorry.
No, I don't think that's true. I think they are still existing. I mean, one of the things I've noticed over the time I've been on the project is not a move away from, but a move perhaps more towards the way the kind of Microsoft standards work, as opposed to the way Umbraco have done things traditionally in the past. So dependency injection is one, logging is another, hosted services, background tasks is another one, and composers and components, I guess, is another sort of Umbraco way of registering services. So as I understand, they are going to remain, because if you want to support a the package format that we're kind of used to, in the sense that you can install via the back office without having to write any code in your solution, you're still going to need that for the kind of registering services. But if you want to, you can also provide the more standard .NET Core way of when you know, in your configure services, you kind of say use Umbraco or use AutoMapper. You can say use my package and kind of do the stuff in there. So if you want to support a sort of install by NuGet and use these extension methods, you can do that. But if you want to support the package format and install by the back office, you can still use components and composers. So my take on it is they're still going to exist, but you may make less use of them if you're happier doing your configuration by code.
I guess what I was referring to with the components is that previously that was what we were using to register and hook into static events, which are going to be moved away from. So it will now be event handlers that we create. The really interesting thing here as well is it's not complete. So there's still a lot of static events, I believe, in the code base that people can go in and contribute, and it's a really nice way to contribute, migrate those over to using a handler.
Yeah, that's right. And Bianca's also, I know, called out that if package developers are depending on particular ones, that they can definitely reach out to us and say, look, of that list of 70 odd still to go, put these ones at the top, because that's the ones we're working on.
Oh, that's great. That's really good.
And still, feedback is needed, not only from package developers, but generally testing it out, and everything what alphas and betas are for is still open. And yeah, as Callum said at the beginning, it's great to see a lot of more people are testing it and sharing their thoughts. But yeah, there is also a nice description on how to share feedback and how to raise issues. So if we'll find any, and also if we will have any requests for, as you've said, Andy, prioritization of the package events or things like that, let's just do it. And yeah, it's getting there. And Andy, you've mentioned packages, but you've also made a great blog post this recently about migrating packages.
8 or 9 blog posts.
I wanted to say you've made a blog. You've made a blog.
I'm not sure when the previous post on that blog was. It might have been 8 in the last week. I think before that was probably about a year ago. But,
yeah,
exactly.
It was about migrating packages to .NET Core, right?
Yeah, well, one of the jobs I'm going to have in the next week or so to start really is migrating forms and deploy over to .NET Core. So, you know, I do need to start on that, but I kind of thought it'd be more useful for the community to try and do something in public, and obviously they're closed source, so I can't do that. Yeah. And also, they're kind of, they deploy certainly forms as well, but fairly big code bases, so they're kind of a bit daunting. So what I thought was I start with one of my own, which is not tiny, but it's not massive either, and just start doing it and blog as I go, and as you can see, number 2, a false start, make my mistakes in public, and you know, try and fix them as I go. And hopefully that sort of that journey of doing it will be useful for other people that are, you know, planning to do the same with their packages.
Fantastic. This resource, I know for sure, is going to be absolutely invaluable. I remember in the kind of early V8 days, Stefan's blog was and still kind of is a fantastic resource on the component and composer structure and how Umbraco starts itself up. And whenever I've had to do something somewhat complex with the DI container, I've somehow found myself back on that blog, and I can see that this will be the exact same thing.
Yeah, I hope so. But I think what's very important that we do is we kind of have this time now when we're all sort of blogging and sharing information, but we all need to make sure that we get that stuff back in the docs at the end. So when I get to the end of this and I've gone through all the mistakes that no one needs to do again, then kind of pull out the stuff that's actually right and make sure that's in the docs. So we've got some.
Yeah, I was going to say that because so many of us are doing exactly the same things more than once, noting it down, having these notes maybe on their computers, their notepads, maybe even their teams if they're exchanging knowledge across the teams. But it never goes out or rarely goes outside of the teams. And this approach is kind of helping, but as you've said, it needs to land somewhere where it's accessible by the next ones who will, again, go to the start of this race and replicate the same issues all the time. So, yeah, definitely collaboration on that with the documentation team, or generally the contribution to documentation back is essential. And yeah, looking forward to that, because we know how hard it is to maintain resources in many places. And still, I really like the approach which you've done at the beginning, where you were looking for resources, for example, right? So probably it's the same set of resources which we will tackle and we will look for when we will be starting, and if they will be updated, or if they will be even pointing to this blog series, that's definitely better at the beginning than something what will not expose any issues and allow us to do that the wrong way.
I know, Andy, you mentioned that part of your role is going to be moving deploy and Umbraco Forms over to .NET Core, updating it to work with V9 of Umbraco. But, and I think we're allowed to talk about this, it's not the only part of your role that's going to involve packages, right?
I see where you're going. Yes, exactly. So my other part of my role is to pick up the stewardship of the packages team that Jesper was previously head of, and he's now moved on to work for an agency, an Umbraco agency, so he's still in the Umbraco community, but he's no longer heading up the packages team. So yeah, so that's something I'm picking up too. And yeah, the main reason really is it overlaps, as I said, with the things we were talking about. So for all package developers, I think the move to V9 is going to be a big thing in the next 3-6 months. And so hopefully I can kind of help support that.
Great.
And
you've experienced all the pain up front. So again, like you said, in 3 months' time, you'll have a nice succinct, this is exactly what I need to do, and you can help all the other package devs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I don't want to speak too soon, but I think it's going okay so far. But I have sort of cheated in a way that I'm just making sure things compile and test files. I haven't actually got to the point of actually running the thing. So we'll see what happens there. But actually, the moving to .NET Core, I think we're lucky in a way that, I mean, obviously Umbraco is a little behind the curve in the sense of before we can, as Umbraco devs, move on to .NET Core, we have to wait for Umbraco to get there. But there is just a lot of resources out there for this migration. So many developers have gone through this now, and I just constantly found every time I had a squiggly line under something, I just Googled that in .NET Core, and the first answer is so actually the move to .NET Core, I think, isn't going to be too painful for most devs. I think the challenge is more, which is not something that I'm really looking at, is the people maintaining different versions, wanting to maintain V8 and V9 and doing that in 2 repos or 1 repo. That's I think where the biggest challenge
updating and retaining. Yeah,
it's a really interesting one, and this, I mean, it's a huge topic that we could spend ages discussing. It's been discussed many times before about what version number to use for your package. I know a bunch of people have decided with V8 to tie the version number to the CMS version, but with CMS moving to more semantic versioning, that may go out the window. It may be that your package works on V9, 10, 11, 12, but doesn't on 13. Are we going to just have these huge jumps? What about the people who've already released, version 1 of their package? Are we going to see renames of things? It's going to be an interesting time. I know that
versioning is hard, Callum. That's
in your blog post you mentioned the idea of maybe multi-targeting things, if that was even an option to explore. And I think you will come out if I'm
right. I did for me, but that was possibly just a specific case, because what I had done previously was build a solution that multi-targets between 7 and 8. So what I started to say was, okay, can I add 9 to this? And it was just too much. Trying to support stuff that works on 7 and 9 I just decided this is ridiculous. Let's just get one working on 9 and not worry about all these things. Now, between 8 and 9, that might be a more sensible thing to tackle. And I know Kevin Jump, for example, has started looking at that with some kind of if-def code compilation options. And I know others I'm sure others that particularly have active development on V8 packages. I kind of, probably want to look more into this to see if it is feasible.
And it will be entirely dependent on the complexity of the package and what it's doing. If it's hooking into something that's changed drastically between versions, then it's not really going to be feasible. But if it's just different method signatures for the same service or something, maybe that's okay. I know for my journey, when in the V7 to V8 migration, I actually, for a lot of my V7 packages, I spent the time to refactor things in V7 to align more closely with V8 before I did the migration. And then it made the actual V8 migration far easier. And I'm kind of hoping, as a result, I've got some relatively clean V8 packages that should maybe lend itself quite nicely to that multi-targeting approach. And I've got V1, V2, V3 for that would be the plan, at least. V9 will be V3. But different approaches for everyone, I guess, and complexities and whatnot.
And I think the other thing is obviously going from 7 to 8, there were clearly Umbraco changes, but you're still running on .NET Framework. If this time we're going 8 to 9, there's going to be less Umbraco changes in a way, because there's much less change to method signatures and that sort of thing. But obviously there's a new framework. So.
Indeed. Interesting.
And speaking about it, because we are all looking for some resources and help, there are some good community teams and members there who are actively exchanging this knowledge and sharing this knowledge stuff. And there is a community chat just around the corner, right? In the 7th of April, am I correct?
Yeah, the 7th of
7th April.
Yeah.
And the whole Unicore project team and Unicore community team will be open for questions, and everyone can ask questions. Everyone can gather the questions for this session. And again, the recording will be available on GitHub, not on GitHub, on YouTube, on community YouTube, and everyone can just rewatch it and learn from the answers there and leave the questions to the team. And yeah, if we'll have any package related, migration related, and any other related questions, just let's make sure that they are landing on this form. I'm really curious about this one, to be honest, because I believe this was the hottest topic for a long time in terms of migrations or the future of Umbraco. So let's see how it will go. 7th April, 4 p.m. Central European time. What's next on the agenda? We've talked about.
We missed Warren's video.
Yes, that's what I had opened, but yeah, I have it still. So yeah, and another .NET Core thing being shared and hacked by Warren this week, and it's configuring Umbraco on .NET Core using JSON schema. I haven't watched this video yet, but it seems like yeah, again great resource. And Callum, did you watch it? Did you follow the steps already for that?
Had a very busy week, unfortunately.
So yeah, another schema approach for configuration of Umbraco. If anyone wants to check it out, go to Umbraco community channel, which will host as well all the other videos which I've mentioned and recordings from the community sessions and community office hours, which are dropped there. And yeah, we've mentioned forms and deploy. Andy, do you want to tell us more about the current releases? Because you've also released the first release candidate for a while for Umbraco Forms, and yeah, do you want to tell us more about this release and the next releases? Any plans on Forms at this moment?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I've talked about kind of almost the second task for Forms, which is the kind of migration to .NET Core. But before that, what I'm looking to do is to just basically give Forms a little bit more love. I think everyone recognizes HQ community that it probably hasn't had the attention it's deserved, and that's one of the reasons why I've been hired into this role. And really, just when I started, I kind of looked through the issue tracker, and there's just a lot of things there that I kind of call them low-hanging fruit. There were bugs that were fairly easy to fix, features that were fairly easy to add, and why not? Let's kind of just make a bit of a dent in the issue tracker and try and resolve a few of those. So there's like quite a number of small things in there.
Yeah.
A couple of the bigger things you're just looking at there, the sort of reCAPTCHA version 3. And
3 things big, because I know there was a few community packages that did this.
Yeah, exactly.
Not quite right. And V2, which is shipping with Forms currently, is breakable by any bot pretty much, and it just means loads and loads of spam through Forms. So that's
similarly with the Slack workflow. We ship with one at the minute, but it's using a legacy method that's I'm not sure if it's possible even now, but it's certainly not the best way to do things. So we've got a newer version of that.
Some new things like multiple file uploads, right, as well.
Yeah, this is a small one actually. I'm not quite sure when that got pulled out in the blog post, but it's really just allowing you to upload single or multiple. I think previously you could only have a multiple upload. But this database piece is probably the biggest one. What I found is, and probably just showing my age a bit, but when I start building an application, or what I used to, the first thing you do is to kind of get the database right with all the foreign keys and that type of thing. And Forms is missing some of those that you would kind of expect to be there. So I want to add them, but the tricky thing about adding them is they're there to prevent random sort of data integrity issues being caused by application bugs. And the reason to have them is to prevent those happening. But if you haven't got them there, there's no guarantee they haven't happened, and therefore it's then difficult to add them.
Break everything.
So what I've done is I've made a migration to add them. But if it can't add them, it will just kind of skip, because they're clearly not essential. They're just recommended. And we've added a health check to allow you to kind of look in the back office and it'll tell you, look, this table's missing foreign key that you should have. And then lastly, there's some documentation and some scripts to kind of add them if you need to. Because clearly the migration can't get into cleaning the data in the sense of removing duplicates, you know. So that's probably the biggest change, and probably the one that we appreciate most kind of testing on, just to make sure that if you deploy that on a existing installation, it adds them successfully.
Interesting, because we had the same issue recently, the same issue with this ID there.
I think I had one where if you, of course, with the JSON files before, if you were to copy a form, I think it keeps the same field IDs in the new form, but then you can go and change the label, the field type, all kinds of stuff. The ID remains the same as from the other form, but of course the whole data behind it's completely different.
Yeah, so we've actually resolved that. That's not so much on the database level, because this is just a blob of JSON that's stored in the database or stored on disk. But that is one of the ones we've fixed now. So if you copy a form, you'll get all new IDs.
Fantastic. I was going to say there's 42 fixes in this release, which is as much as we'd see in a kind of minor release for the core CMS, which is fantastic to see that this much love.
A lot of them are quite small, so that's
but that's exactly the thing which probably we were all waiting for. Is like we knew that some of these things are small and they just don't require too much of actions, but some actions and some dedication to them, and it's glad that you are there, Andy, right now, and yeah, it's getting forward, because as you've said, there were some long-hanging fruits out there, issues from 2015 or something like that even, which hopefully will now get addressed, or if not, they will just get cleaned, and we'll be able to really evolve forms, because still I think it's a crucial part of Umbraco and Umbraco installations. So I believe that we need to just help in making it happen. And again, 8.7 RC is available for testing, and if I saw correctly, April 6th is the aimed date of releasing it to public, right?
Yeah, that's the plan.
So if we will have time to test it, anyone wants to test it, let's just do it. And I already have one solution which it might get fixed by this small database change which you've said. Not that small, but small, not visible from the front end change, which might get a lot of improvements for all of the installations. So big high five for doing that.
It as we said, it's fantastic just to see
another product
dedicated to this product and deploy as well, but just so that it can get the love that it clearly, and everyone acknowledges that it's needed for a very long time. And I also can't think of a better pair of hands to leave it with. As you say, you're kind of architecture focused. You're not just coming in here to fix bugs, but actually looking at it as a kind of a longer term strategy. You've got to maintain this. You mentioned as well before we went live that one of your first actions was to introduce linting on the code base, or style cop or something. Did you say?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Forms, I think it's 12 years old now. So, there's been a lot of developers, a lot of different coding styles have been added to it. So, one of the things I just wanted to do is kind of get a little bit of standardization in there, which we've actually, we've used on CMS. I mean, it's not applied throughout CMS because actually it's kind of easy to add the rules. It's changing all the code to meet them that takes the time. But as new code is going into the V9 version, it's all meeting these rules. And we found definitely benefits on there. So I ported that over to Forms, and obviously Forms is a lot smaller. So, it took a little while, but it wasn't too hard to kind of get everything lined up. So yeah, it's just a bit more standardized, a bit more consistent. That's all.
Future-proofing things as well.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And the second child, which you've been taking care of, is deploy on premises, which brought a lot of discussions on Twitter and community this week. And you've joined the product team after it was built, just to make the initial release and take care of it from now on, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to claim any credit for what's gone before, because there's been a lot of work done on this for many years. As you probably know, Deploy is a core part of cloud, and it's the deployment engine of cloud. And so on premises, it's effectively the same product. There's a few subtle changes around the edges, but the core of Deploy is the same as was used on cloud. So yeah, really all I've done is add a dashboard and just help organize, get the release out.
Very nice.
It was long awaited and also long tested by various agencies and partners, as far as I know, before it got launched. And yeah, all of the people who were benefiting from using the Umbraco Cloud were always admiring the way how easy it is to transfer stuff between the environments. And right now it's available as a package. And I forgot to mention that, but again, forms and deploy on premises are still packages. So it really nicely couples with the package team involvement from your side, Andy. So that's another great thing. And here we have it. We are able to use it. And Callum, I interrupted you on some of the.
I was going to just ask Andy what the future holds for deploy. Yeah. Of course, you're coming onto this now as kind of the owner of that product from a technical stance. So what are the plans? Is the next priority migrating it to .NET Core, or is there potential feature improvements that we could see at some point? You don't have to comment on anything you don't want to.
No, that's fine. I mean, to an extent, a lot of I kind of see my job here as there's sort of 3 stages. There's this kind of stabilization phase, which I talked about in terms of fixing existing issues. Then there's the kind of moving to .NET Core. And then there's kind of what happens after that, how we extend these things out. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still kind of getting my feet under the table on the first 2, really, to have any big plans for what happens moving forward. But I mean, so I really see deploy as exactly as you said. There's the move to .NET Core we need to do, but it's not the same as Forms by any means, because deploy has had a lot of active development, because as and when an issue comes up, it's usually affecting a cloud customer, which obviously something Umbraco are going to prioritize.
We have seen releases for deploy probably every 2 weeks consistently for 2 or 3 years.
But that's not to say there aren't issues that he's sorting out. We've created, this might be worth mentioning actually, we've created a public deploy issues tracker now, separate from cloud. Okay. So we've migrated a number of issues from the cloud one into deploy, where they'll get fixed there. And yeah, as you'd expect, deployment is a hard problem to solve in Umbraco with all the dependencies and what have you. And there's just again, a number of fairly small things. Some of which may turn out to be quite hard to fix, but things to look at and try and solve. Just with certain properties not being deployed because they've been added in later versions of CMS and things like that to work through.
We get this even when you do an Umbraco upgrade, and occasionally you'll find this one weird property wasn't migrated properly, and or actually you've got some. I've seen it a lot with data type pre-values where, if you've upgraded a site from V4 to V6, 7, even up to 8, that actually, because the schema of pre-values has changed quite significantly over that time.
IDs, keys, unique identifiers,
doesn't
all the mess right now.
So I've no idea how you'd even tackle that as a challenge with
well, this is we were talking earlier about this sort of dependencies thing, and this is one of the things, because obviously deploy is I think it supports Umbraco 8.1, so that's what it's compiled against. But if a property's been added in a later version of Umbraco, deploy doesn't know anything about it. So there is reflection, which is what we kind of use to solve these things. But those are the kind of things that I'm having to sort of dig into and try and resolve.
And it is an interesting problem to deal with. Again, you're working at scale. You've got deploy for V7. Is that still the case? Deploy for V7 is for V7 Cloud, or is there?
That's right. No, I think if I get this right, but yeah, there's a deploy version 2, which I think is used on cloud for V7, and then deploy version 3.5 and now 4 is used for V8, and 4 is the one for on premises.
So you've got a broad scope of support there that you have to provide to cloud sites and then the new deploy on premises stuff.
Yeah, that's true. But again, this is where I'm talking about how the teams need to collaborate, because deploy isn't by any means a standalone product. It's what is a very important part of cloud. So we obviously need to make sure that any changes kind of work across both. But on the other hand, any fixes that are needed for cloud will also kind of be available in the on-premises version. So.
And again, it's good to see a next version of delivery machine, such as Courier was back in the days. And I recently even I was discussing it with a lot of developers who were inheriting old sites. They were still asking if there is a Courier for V8, if there is a courier for the future of Umbraco versions, and obviously it's not the same as courier was, right? It's a completely different application. It's not just rebuilt engine to work on the newest version of Umbraco. But yeah, it's another opportunity to use something what will do the tough job and the hard job for all of us in migrating stuff between environments. But of course, the biggest discussion was around the pricing, because that was something what was also shared inside of this blog post, and even looking on the special discounts given for the gold partners, certified partners, and standard users, it looks like a lot of money to pay for the package, but it also was said that most of it is like for an enterprise level of support of the package and the implementations, and not just the solution to use it, not just the license fee for the product. And yeah, I fairly get the point of people complaining that it's a lot, but still it's a different type of the tool, different type of a service. And still, we have a lot of other opportunities, right? Such as using Complete, for example, which was on the market for a while, and
there's a lot of people that have been drawing comparisons between the using Complete, which I think basically £1,000 has always been an absolute bargain. It's an incredibly well polished product. Of course, it's taken Kevin 5 years to get it to the point of USync being as polished as it is, so that whole offering can come together. And I think in some ways comparing deploy with courier is a totally unfair thing. The courier pricing was, I think, €9, and now it's €1,500. And of course, the top tier price of this is €9,600, 650% increase in the price there. But they're not the same product, and they're not targeted at the same people. And ultimately, if you want to use USync, use USync. I think that's a completely fair thing to suggest. I personally, on a project, have never suggested courier to a client. I hand on heart can say I've never suggested it to a client. And that's probably because of the types of clients I work with. The ones who I've shown kind of content deployments in Umbraco Cloud have gone, oh, that's cool. And it's nice that it's there, but they wouldn't have missed it if it wasn't. And I've never worked with a client big enough where they have, content approval and they need all of that control over their content to push it to different environments. I do believe that need is a kind of enterprise-y type need. And if what you're buying from Deploy is that plus the support and the backing of a big company like Umbraco, the price makes sense. It's maybe a bit too steep, in my opinion. I think perhaps the discounted prices are a bit more palatable, but enterprises will pay that if that's what they want, and they're going to be buying the enterprise support from Umbraco. For Kevin, if you want to use USync Complete, go for it. It's a great product. It works really nicely. Kevin offers support as well, but you're not getting the big name. Well, Kevin's still a pretty big name, but you're not getting the big name of Umbraco behind it.
KG.
And there is the kind of bureaucracy and pain of a small company like Kevin's company taking on enterprise clients. They have a ridiculous procurement process and documentation that needs to be submitted. Umbraco's got the resource to deal with that. Kevin doesn't. I think the prices are relatively fair.
I have one concern from my side, to be honest, about that, and I shared it to you, Callum, earlier, that I think that all the enterprise customers, because enterprise word was mentioned more than once in this blog post, enterprise customers who are able to pay a lot of money for maintaining their services, developing their services, they are already probably paying a lot for supporting their solutions for agencies or software houses or developers who are doing or maintaining it for them. It's like it will be a debate, and it will be tricky to convince the client to also pay for something next to that, because it's still the Umbraco, it's still something what is used inside, and they were living without it so far, right? And that's the part that's the part of the tricky element here, because it is on cloud. If you want to use it, you can use it on cloud. If you are fetching the cloud scenario and you want to use the Umbraco cloud, that's okay as well. But if you don't want to use it, you don't need to do it. You can just still develop content on various environments, or use using if it's fetching your requirements. But still, it's another opportunity and another probably target as well of the customer. And I'm really curious how it will work. I'm really curious.
The thing I'm going to add to that is, for me, it makes the cloud offering right now far more compelling, even more compelling. We'll talk about the infrastructure changes coming to cloud in a bit, but definitely, I'm quite excited about where cloud can go. The pricing of where deploy on premises has been positioned is high, but it's high because it's a special requirement that you want to host your site somewhere specific where you need that level of control. It is an enterprise requirement, and I think a lot of the arguments for, oh, we can't use cloud have always been, it's just a European data center, or it's not, you know, the stability is not good enough. Now, all of that's changing with cloud. So maybe a lot of the people that did want deploy on premises or thought they wanted it, what they wanted Courier on V8, actually maybe cloud will fulfill that need very suitably in the coming months. And so for me, it will make me reconsider whether we use cloud or not, if that was ever a need project.
Yeah. Andy, where were you using cloud projects before you joined the HQ?
To be honest, only one. We recently moved the Zone website to Umbraco Cloud, but we hadn't actually used it for client projects. That may change in the future. I'm not there anymore. But yeah, we certainly would look at on premises for those solutions. I mean, I'm kind of quite happy to stay out most of this bit of discussion, to be honest with you. But I just would kind of just sort of echo what you're saying there, Callum. As I understand, really, that it's seeing that the market for this is something for people who feel they need to go beyond cloud. So they need different data centers, they need more load balancing, they need to control the infrastructure more, but they still want to have, the deployment tool. So that's part of it. Yes, and exactly, that's something. And then the other thing, just personally, that obviously one of the reasons I've been hired is to support these products. And what's happened in the past, I suppose, is that the responsibility has fallen between people because nobody's kind of been put on the budget to say that's what they're for, and that does need revenue to support it. So yeah,
exactly.
The Quick Pro is, yes, okay.
I was going to say that, but that is the most important takeaway from this, which is that you are on board. This helps fund having you available, and even if you are not using, you're not going to be buying licenses for deploy. Still working with forms and you being available to work on forms, we get a kickback from that. If a few enterprises do want to and you don't, that's totally fine, because it's still ultimately the whole ecosystem is going to benefit from you working on those products. If you want it, as I said, if you want to use Sync, if that fits better with your budget, do it. Do it. And in fact, I've missed it from the release notes for some reason, but this week, USync, Kevin released a preview version of USync for Forms, for Umbraco Forms. So that kind of relationship's just coming even closer now, where they're both completely viable options depending on your setup. And choice is healthy, choice is good.
Always. That's something what we were awaiting for, and still a lot of both Umbraco and also USync can benefit from this situation, because a lot of people were waiting for the packages like deploy on premises, and right now they will have a choice. They need to make the decision, and they will make the decision, and they will choose the best fitting option for them, and that's a clean choice then. But you've mentioned cloud, which is as you've said, Callum, probably getting also benefits from the whole situation, and also will be a valuable choice for a lot of the decisions to be made about Umbraco and architectural decisions. And there was a blog post this week also about the status of changes of Umbraco cloud infrastructure. And we've been highlighting this post from Morten for a while, and we were always awaiting them. And again, this one is showing a lot of optimistic information here, because the new infrastructure is ready, which is kind of the highlight of this. And Callum, you've mentioned some of these, like blob storage migrations, some of the data centers dependencies behind the scenes, and some of the other things which are also highlighted here. They are there, and they are getting there.
this next stage of the project is going to be actually starting to migrate existing sites over to that infrastructure, and they're going to be doing it group by group, small groups initially, and then probably bigger ones. Depending on versions of Umbraco, I assume they'll try and migrate the more up-to-date versions to the new infrastructure first, because that makes logical sense. But they've said if you're on anything lower than v8.6 or 7.7, I think it was, you need to upgrade if you want to be migrated, and they'll be reaching out to those people to make sure that happens. You need to just upgrade beyond those versions, I think. But they've also been, a few of our clients have had emails already saying, oh, we're going to be doing these changes, you need to update your DNS. They've been pretty hot on making sure people are, up to date and ready. And then later in the year, new projects will be coming online on that platform too. I'm excited.
Yeah, and as we've been discussing, more people will probably turn to use cloud, because they will, the excuses for not using it will be probably getting lower in the amount of them, to be honest. So that's always good. That's from the HQ's releases, but we've had also some package releases and some new stuff being released this week. We've mentioned the using complete forms release, which we don't have on the links yet, but we will of course upgrade the list of the links, which will be down below the video. But we can start from Articulate and Shannon releasing the new version of the blog package with the support right now for Markdown code snippets and syntax highlighting. And again, I must admit that I haven't used Articulate especially in the newest upgraded version, but it seems like it's still evolving. It's still giving a lot of new fancy features like Markdown editing, which is probably missed by a lot of people, myself included, in creating blogs. And yeah, it's good to see the new version of Articulate here, which is ready to be used there. And Shannon also released a new version of ExamineX containing some bug fixes.
We had a v1.12 as well this week.
Oh yeah, that's correct. But this is the newest version with 2 bug fixes. Some of other were fixed in previous version. ExamineX is an Azure search based replacement of ExamineIndexes for Umbraco. Check it out if you haven't seen it yet. And one more package to highlight this week. 2 more packages to highlight. Callum, starting from Christian, still being on target with the.
We're going to need to give Christian his own appreciation section, because every week he's sliding another great package in there. And again, V7, V8 packages, both supporting both, because they're nice back office things. I guess in theory, they should just support V9 as well, given that there's no DLLs in there. They're just pure JavaScript. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the image hotspot package from Christian this week. So property that lets us place a hotspot on an image. And Callum, you've released a new package which allows to preview emails in vendor templates, right?
Yes. So the email templates in vendor you can create that hook into different events and say when an order gets confirmed, send this email. But this package lets you preview what the email will look like directly in the back office. So you can search for an order, find it, and it will pull up the exact email just rendered in the back office for you. Something we needed for a client, and so I just went and hacked away and built it. Nice.
Thanks for sharing, and yeah, all vendor users right now will go to check it and see if it will help them and their customers as well. And this is on NuGet. And that's from the packages point of view, but also there was a great blog post shared by Jesper about the back office extensions, which is kind of another great entry point for doing some kind of enhancements of Umbraco list view. And it was about creating custom back office list views and combining it with infinite editing. And I didn't go through the whole blog post, but I checked some of the code examples because I was going through the same similar issue and challenge a while ago. And it's a great tutorial, great blog post highlighting how to accomplish exact solution which is described there. So yeah, did you guys check this, by the way, or did you go through the same approaches?
I've glanced over it, but it looks cool. I think he's building a scheduled publish dashboard So I think the idea is you see a list of all of the content that you've got that's going to be published at some point, and then you can go in and infinitely edit that content node, which I don't know what Jesper's plan is here. I'd love to see that as a package, because that would be really, really helpful in a few sites.
So yeah, and we got used to some of the great blog posts highlighting these tutorials recently, because again, another team, the ProWorks team, shared the part 4 of their series about the headless on umbraco.net core, and this one is about setting up the search using the Algolia search provider. And yeah, it's, I don't know if it's the last of the series or it's
one more. We were promised a part 5.
But yeah, it's another great comprehensive material on how to set it up from scratch, from zero to being Algolia hero in this case. So yeah, great resource and great material from the ProWorks team here. Another new thing this week is an episode from Candid team. So the team is back, and again, it landed on our to listen list. I haven't listened to it yet. Callum, what about you and Andy? Did you follow the Candid contributions team?
I haven't heard this episode, but it listened to the previous ones.
But there is one keyword which might be banned on my search list or search engines. Yeah, why did the Java developer wear glasses? I believe there will be a lot of great relations to Java and all the fights in between of the technology points of views.
The episode's focus is humor, and you know why it's actually an interesting but potentially dangerous tool. It's an important thing to keep us happy and whatever. But actually, in a workplace, in a professional sense, it's potentially a risky tactic to employ. And I mean, the fact you mentioned Java there, Marcin, we're probably going to have to bleep this out of the episode of umbraCoffee.
Yeah, hopefully we won't get banned because we have C# attached to every episode. We might get dropped in the results on YouTube and get less views this week. But yeah, we take the blame of mentioning Java here.
You can't blame me then. That's good.
Yeah. Cool. Another thing which we wanted to highlight is a webinar, which was the recording of webinar was shared this week, and it was a technology partner webinar done with WooCommerce. And I don't know why it's not loading for me yet, but it was announced. It was I don't know when it was exactly performed, but we've mentioned about the e-commerce possibilities these days for Umbraco installations, and WooCommerce is one of them. So if anyone wants to check out how WooCommerce works in the recent Umbraco version, Soren did here a great demo and also exposed some of the patterns and implementations that can work with Umbraco and WooCommerce. And the recording is not on the community, it's on Umbraco HQ YouTube channel, to which you can go and check it out right now, because it's there since this week. That's from this point of view. I'm checking what else do we have on the list. We have some call to actions and some summaries from this week.
Yeah, some exciting news, which was we discussed a few weeks back about the International Women's Day efforts that Umbraco were doing to give free fundamentals training courses to 21 people over the world, and they've announced that they've been handed out, including 16 different countries: Turkey, India, UK, US, Brazil, Venezuela. Nice. Belgium, Denmark, Ukraine, Poland, Canada, and Spain, which is lovely to see. The fact that we've got such a nice spread, and I would have never thought, well, I'm sure there's Umbracans in Venezuela, but I would never have thought that we would get to see that posted on an HQ tweet. Maybe we can get a U profile or something from someone in Venezuela. That would be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, always for the next in-person Code Garden, it will be a bigger representation of women in tech and from across the whole globe, thanks to this new Umbraco certified fundamentals course attendees. So that's a great action and great summary of the efforts from HQ. And final call to action for UI component library. That's something what we wanted to mention. It was raised this week. That I don't know if the exact date was mentioned. Callum, do you remember?
I think it's the 6th. Final comment period's on the 6th.
Yeah,
8th. The 8th. Well, that's good,
yeah, it's
because
going to be accepted on April 8th.
I know that there's potentially, I mean, I'll speculate that there's another RFC coming related to the back office and the future of the back office very soon, imminently, and it will probably align quite nicely with this closing and the next opening. So you've got till the 8th to give your final comments. It was mentioned in the
product update, right?
Today, that there will be a new RFC coming for that. And I know that week we're going to have some special guests as well on umbraCoffee to discuss what's coming up. So we're so prepared, Marcin. We never planned 3 weeks in advance. It's impossible.
Exactly.
But yeah,
that was mentioned here, and that was something what we wanted to highlight. So there are next steps, and this is kind of following the setup process of this RFC and this work on the back office changes, which is good. A lot of comments were made. We've seen a lot of actions already. So if anyone waited to share their feedback on the last minute is on April 8th, and the next steps are taken from then. So yeah, let's just be involved and let's do this to not forget about this. And there was also a new hire highlighted on Umbraco HQ blog, which is who is Niels, the Baron of Jutland. Yes, sorry, Callum.
I just said another Niels. I think there's 4 at HQ.
It's never too many.
There's a lot of new starters at the moment. One thing Umbraco organises is a series of kind of meetings over the first few weeks where you're introduced to the Coma team and the SWAT team and the D team. And I think there's 8 of us in these sessions at the minute. So there's a lot starting.
Yeah, but I remember this Niels from one of the Code Gardens, so I know that he was pretty involved in the communication with Umbraco. So yeah, it's great to see new people. And again, Umbraco is constantly delivering this blog post to let us all get know new people. And Callum, your section, Adolphi Appreciation Time.
we love Dennis, of course. Every week, Dennis does awesome things on his blog, and no exception this week. Lots of really good unit testing content. So comparing NUnit versus XUnit, it's still something that I'm not quite sure I can.
Who won?
I'm not really sure, because I know when you set up when you go in Visual Studio and say, create a test project, and it will ask you which one you want. And is there MS test as well?
Test as well, yeah, still there. Yeah.
I've tried all 3 of them out over the years, and I think syntactically I prefer XUnit, but
me too.
But I think it's going to be one of these stylistic things. They're all pretty much they do the same thing. It's just the different terminology and keywords that they use. Yeah, I don't know. And of course, Dennis is staying on the fence with this one. It's a tie in
but I think he gives his favourite at the end.
Oh, NUnit. Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Fair enough. But again, it's kind of everyone has their personal favorite. As you've said, Callum, it's really hard to choose. And again, it's sometimes being dependent from using one or another. And we've seen a lot of Umbraco examples in NUnit. So maybe we got used to it or get used to see a lot of NUnit examples. But still, there are a lot of other engines which are maybe more tailored for specific cases. But again, great efforts on combining and battling. The second article from Dennis was about the series of getting started with unit testing, and the title of this one is to don't get stuck. In this case, Dennis shared some of the follow-ups to the previous episode of the series. And everyone who wants to get started with unit testing, not only with Umbraco but generally, can go there and just follow the steps, choose the frameworks, choose the libraries to use, and just start doing it. improve.
And let's not forget
the code bases in general.
Dennis is going to be doing a talk at the Umbraco Leeds meetup on maybe the 6th, maybe, or the 8th, about exactly that. There'll be a talk version of that unit testing blog series, which will be really, really good. So go sign up to that. We'll put the link below as well.
And as usual, we'll place all the links down below. So you don't need to search for that. You don't need to look for it. And if we missed anything, make sure that it's getting pasted in the comments down below the YouTube video. We'll, of course, update it and distribute it as same as we always do. And yeah, big shout out to our new supporter on umbraCoffee, buy as a coffee portal. /pizza/donuts. Yeah. Thanks as usual, and thanks Andy for joining us today and highlighting all of the stuff which you've been doing recently. And yeah, we are just keeping fingers crossed for the future of the great products and all of your involvement in the product, .NET Core, packages team and everything else what you've been doing there. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be an exciting time, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
And as usual, I don't know if from lying bed or from sitting desks, we will see each other on the next Friday. So see you all then. Have a great rest of the day and a great weekend ahead. So see you next Friday. Thank you, everyone.